I could go up right now I have an unclassified web page that goes right into the Department of Defense, which shows every operation ever conducted by the U.S. military, all the named operation, Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, Desert Storm, Korean War. And you could see the number of casualties and dead and wounded in action, KIAs, wounded in action, prisoners, all that. This new category of overseas operations, first time I've seen that, and it's certainly divorced from the current operation inside of Iran. And I think it's game playing in terms of numbers. The president wants to stand up and continue to do things like say, well, there were more casualties in Iraq or there were more casualties in Vietnam. That gets into a number crunching game. And I got to tell you, it's insulting to all soldiers because these aren't numbers. As far as we're concerned, these are people. These are mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, and Americans who have sacrificed their all in combat. And to play silly games like this, which is almost a shell game, is just anathema to me.
And that's part of the reason why I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation your book, because your book, If I Don't Return, really spoke to me, and it really made me think about it when I was having this conversation with Senator Duckworth, because, you know, she really can speak from active combat as a veteran and somebody who has suffered and lost. And she was so upset with this games playing on these numbers. And to your point, I wanted to make sure that I had made it clear with you that this is something that is unique to this Department of Defense and this Secretary of Defense, right?
The civilians in the Department of Defense.
Galalal Malak Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak, Wadash. And double honors to the elders of Jemas Ruel. Blessings unto those men. And blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel Barakatah. Today's lesson, the woman shall mourn, having no husbands. This is in response to the video in which we just saw. Now, when it comes to the scriptures, they also speak of those casualties of war. In this third world war to come, no soldier shall return. No soldier shall come home. That being said, let's begin in 2 Esdras 16 and 33. Here we have that scripture of 2 Esdras 16 and 33, which says, the virgin shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. When it comes to these wars, there are many casualties of war, especially in these last days, in these latter times. In the time of that greater war, many soldiers shall perish. None of those soldiers that partake in that destructive nuclear third world war to come shall return home. And a good example of the scripture pertains to the women of Ukraine that have lost their men to the war. That's why the scripture goes on to say, the virgin shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. Right, because the women shall lose their men to the war. In these last days, a mandatory draft shall come. And now there is a military draft coming to America in December of 2026. A mandatory draft shall come, and no soldier will come home. The virgin shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. Right. Due to those men perishing in the war, they shall also perish of famine. Second Ezra 16 and 34. In the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. Right now, we are currently witnessing that Iranian war taking place. But make no mistake, as soon as that deceitful CHIP of Revelation 13 and 16 is fully implemented upon society, that third world war cometh quickly. And when it comes to the people of the nations, they are angry because they are being taken out of their comfort zone. people are still angry at the small hats for coming up against Gaza. Also, for what's happening in Iran, etc. In the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. And you can feel that anger of the nations, especially when it comes to Iran. In the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, right, especially in that third world war of utter destruction. On that day of that greater destructive war, no soldier will come home, and many women shall mourn over their diseased husbands. The time will come when the Lord of hosts shall muster the host of the battle in the final showdown of World War III. Host meaning armies. But make no mistake, an inevitable Third World War will come just as soon as they implement the CHIP of Revelation 13 and 16. So conscription is coming, and conscription is defined by the Britannica Dictionary as the practice of ordering people by law to serve in the armed forces, right? The draft. And when it comes to the small hatters, they shall draw out the Americans to that destructive war of Armageddon. Hebrew word Armageddon. They shall draw them out to their demise. Babylon the Great shall totally be destroyed from coast to coast and shall never rebuild. But when it comes to the land that the small hats now inhabit, that shall certainly rebuild to welcome in the true people of the Lord. As soon as that CHIP of Revelation 13 and 16 is fully implemented upon society, then that inevitable war to end all wars cometh quickly. It comes quickly right after. But husbands shall perish of famine, and shall make women widows. And many women are already widows, especially when it comes to the Ukrainian women. And many women on that day will be looking for men. They shall wish that their men were there, but they shall perish of war and famine, as it says here. In the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. And it's just as the scripture of 2nd Esdras 16-33 said, the virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. Once they pass the CHIP of Revelation 11 and 14, then that third world war cometh quickly. It follows quickly right after. Revelation 11 and 14, the second war is past, and behold, the third war cometh quickly. Meaning that the second world war of destruction has passed, but the third world war of destruction cometh quickly, just as soon as they implement the CHIP of Revelation 13 and 16. Once they implement that CHIP of Revelation 13 and 16, that war cometh quickly. As soon as they implement that CHIP of Revelation 13 and 16, that war cometh quickly. As soon as that CHIP is fully implemented upon society around the world, then that destructive and inevitable World War III follows quickly. The Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, has given Esau Edom the knowledge and technology of the sword, and has created the modern day smith in order to bring about the many weapons of his indignation, right, of his righteous anger. Those nuclear missiles of destruction shall take out modern day Babylon the Great, to never rise again. And they shall also cleanse the land that the small hats now inhabit. But the only thing is that Babylon the Great shall never rebuild, but the land that the small hats now occupy shall certainly rebuild to welcome in the true people of the Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. Modern day Babylon the Great shall never rebuild, but the land that the small has now inhabit shall certainly rebuild to welcome in the true people of the Lord, the Israelites. An inevitable third world war of utter destruction is coming to modern day Babylon the Great, which is America. And when that war is declared, expect many people to be drafted mandatorily, men and women. And that's coming by December of 2026. In December of 2026. And when it comes to this war that's to come, it shall be fought with the fuel and burning of fire. A different type of war. Let's go over to that scripture. Here we have that scripture of Isaiah 9 and 5. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. Right, a different type of war. Especially when it comes to World War III. It shall be fought at the push of a button, the silos open, and the arrows of mass destruction shall fly. The battles of ancient warriors came with much confused noise. The confused noise of battle cries was heard, along with the banging of weapons against shields, the rattling noise of battle formations, the clanging of swords and of shields shattering, also armor rattling and being pierced, along with the screams of the injured and of the dying. But in this modern time period, this war to come, the confused noise that many shall hear will be with much burning and fuel of fire as those missiles strike. Doesn't matter now if you're the strongest man in the unit. That means nothing now when you have incoming missiles. The destructive noise of the missiles upon detonation shall be heard as they strike all their strategic targets. This is in reference to the missiles sweeping throughout the lands and consuming everything in its fiery path of destruction. This is the fiery second death according to the scriptures, especially when those arrows of mass destruction detonate. In this greater war that approaches, it shall be fought with the burning and fuel of fire. And when it comes to the rockets, there are liquid and solid fuel rockets. In a liquid rocket, the propellants, the fuel, and the oxidizer are stored separately as liquids and are pumped into the combustion chamber of the nozzle where burning occurs. In a solid rocket, on the other hand, the propellants are mixed together and packed into a solid cylinder. But this shall be with the fuel and burning of fire. You see? And that's one of the reasons why the Lord created the modern day smith. To bring about the weapons of the Lord's indignation, right, of his righteous anger. Let's go over to Isaiah 54 and 16. Isaiah 54 and 16. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy. The Lord created the smith in ancient times as well as in these modern times. A smith in the Middle Ages was also known as a blacksmith who worked on metals by the process of heating, hammering, and forging via a furnace that consisted of a special hearth that bloweth the coals in the fire. This refers to the breath blown by the bellows in order to heat up the furnace even hotter for molding and shaping. An ancient smith designed and brought forth those weapons of war in its early development that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. That instrument is the gift of the missile given unto Esau Edom for the coming war of Armageddon. Hebrew word Armageddon. The ancient smith designed primitive weapons and armor in ancient times, but the modern day smith, that blacksmith, on the other hand, brings forth those instruments of propulsion and of mass destruction that have the capacity to waste and destroy. And when it comes to that modern day smith, he now creates hypersonic missiles of mass destruction that are equipped with sophisticated guidance systems of propulsion. You see? This war that's coming, this deadly third world war of utter destruction that's coming, shall be fought differently. Shall be with the fuel and burning of fire. No longer are we in ancient times, and technology has certainly increased, as Daniel has said. This war that's coming shall totally take out Babylon the Great with those arrows of mass destruction. But the only difference is that Babylon the Great shall never rebuild, but the land that the small has now occupied and inhabit shall certainly rebuild to welcome in the true people of the Lord. But with that being said, Kaulalal Malak Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rachak, Kodash, and double honors to the elders of Jemas Ruel, blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel, Barakatah, Shalom.